This is On Point with Miss Britt, bringing you Week 5 college football recap. So let's get into the elephant in the room. We're going to start off with the previous number 1, Georgia. They are now number 2 due to this game versus Missouri. So Georgia escaped an upset with late touchdowns. They trailed 13-0 in the second quarter with 2 fumbles and failed to score on their first 5 possessions. The second and third quarters, my fault. There was nothing but field goals between both teams. Missouri's kicker was 4 for 4. In the fourth quarter, Georgia had 2 long scoring drives with 1-yard touchdown runs to win the game, basically. So they escaped the upset with those late touchdowns. But we'll see moving forward what happens when they face some real competition. So Georgia's quarterback, Stetson Bennett, he was 24 for 43, 312 yards, and 0 touchdowns. And they moved from the number 1 spot to the number 2 spot. Now, next game, Alabama, they were number 2, now they're number 1 versus Arkansas. Last game, Georgia beat Missouri 26-22. All right, moving on. Alabama versus Arkansas. Alabama lost their QB, Bryce Young, to a shoulder injury in the second quarter. They think he'll be ready to go by next week, so we'll see what happens with that. Alabama had a 20-0 lead in the second quarter. Arkansas came back in the third with its running game. They scored 2 touchdowns and a field goal. Their running back, Raheem Sanders, he had his 400-yard game. His touchdown in the third quarter brought Alabama's lead to 5. So they were within 5 after that touchdown, Arkansas. So they had a chance. But then things took a turn for the worst in the fourth quarter. Alabama's Jahmyr Gibbs, he had 2 touchdown runs, and Arkansas just couldn't hold up. So Alabama just went scoring. They ended up winning the game 49-26. So we will see what happens this coming up week 6. See if Bryce Young is back so they can get that offense rolling. All right, number 3, Ohio State versus Rutgers. Travion Henderson, he was out with an injury. So Mayan Williams, he became their number 1. Rutgers jumped with a 7-0 lead beginning of the game after Egbuka. He fumbled a punt return on the opening drive, so it set up for Rutgers to get a 14-yard touchdown pass. But then after that, it was just a wrap. We just went on scoring. Mayan Williams, he had 5 touchdowns. He rushed for a career high of 189 yards, and he tied for an Ohio State record. C.J. Stroud, his game was a little shaky. He was 13 for 22, and he had a career low of 154 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 interception. But so week 6, moving forward, going to go see Michigan State, see how that goes. All right, number 4, Michigan versus Iowa. Oh, by the way, Ohio State won that game against Rutgers 49-10. All right, moving on. Michigan versus Iowa. Michigan scored on 4 of its first 5 possessions. They fought off a late rally by Iowa to win the game 27-14. Michigan's running back Blake Corum, he rushed for 123 yards and a touchdown. McCarthy threw for 155 yards, and he had a touchdown. Clemson, number 5 Clemson versus number 10 NC State. All right, this was probably one of the big games on Saturday. So Clemson's QB, DJ Uiagalelei, he ran for 2 touchdowns and threw for a third. Clemson's defense is what won this game, to be honest. They held NC State to a field goal for over 29 minutes of the second half. The defense also picked off North Carolina State's QB Leary and recovered a fumble when NC State was trying to go for it on 4th and 13 when they were down 10 points with less than 9 minutes left in the fourth. So kudos to the defense. They're the ones that held it up for them. Uiagalelei, he was 21 for 30, 209 passing yards, and he rushed for 73 yards. So Clemson ended up winning 30-20. Another big game was number 7 Kentucky versus number 14 Ole Miss. Kentucky's QB, Will Levis, he got sacked 3 times and he fumbled on consecutive possessions inside the end zone. Ole Miss recovered both of those fumbles and also stopped Kentucky from scoring game-winning drives on both of those fumbles. In the third quarter, Jonathan Cruz, he had a 26-yard field goal to put Ole Miss up on Kentucky 22-19. Kentucky's QB Levis, he led Kentucky to the Ole Miss 18-yard line, and then on the next play he fumbled the ball because he was getting sacked by Jared Ivey with 58 seconds remaining, and that's basically how they lost the game, was because of that fumble. So Kentucky ended up losing 19-22. Ole Miss's running back Keyshawn Judkins, he rushed for 106 yards, including a 48-yard touchdown that built a 14-0 lead in the first quarter. And also the QB Jackson Dart, he was 15 for 29, 213 passing yards. So those were the big games of the week. And then we had a few upsets. Georgia Tech, they upset Pittsburgh 26-21. Mississippi State versus Texas A&M 42-24. I think this is the second game in a row Texas A&M lost or something. They're going downhill. Although they might put up a fight against Alabama. Can't wait for them to play, because they always come ready. It don't matter how many games they lose. Minnesota lost to Purdue 10-20, and then TCU beat up on Oklahoma 55-24. And Oklahoma, that ship is sinking, so they need prayer. All right, y'all, that is my recap for week 5, and I will see you next week for week 6, and I'm out.